Hey there, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Ever wonder how those huge global events, the ones making headlines halfway across the world, how they can just instantly shake up markets right here, even digital assets? Well, that's exactly what we're getting into today. We've got this one really potent source, just one article that kind of captures a moment. It links a specific geopolitical thing that happened with the immediate market fallout. So our mission really is to pull out the key stuff from this report, understand how it connects these big global events to market reactions, and see what we can learn from it all. The article specifically looks at recent actions involving Israel and Iran, and also a pretty striking statement from a U.S. president that came right after.
Yeah, and understanding this link, it's getting more and more crucial. The source really gives us a sharp picture of how everything's tangled up now. Politics, military stuff, finance, they're not in separate boxes anymore. Things just cascade.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in, following the path laid out in this article. It starts with that big geopolitical event, Israel's strike against Iran. What was the immediate sort of traditional market reaction the article pointed out right after that news hit?
Well, according to the piece, the first thing they noticed, the classic response, was oil prices. They reported oil rocketed pretty much instantly when the strike news came out, which, yeah, that's a very common reaction to tension in the Middle East, right? Because of the energy supply connection, it's predictable.
Right, yeah, the textbook reaction to instability there. But the article then pivots pretty quickly. It brings in another piece, this statement from U.S. President Donald Trump around the same time. The article pulls out specific things he said. What was the main thing President Trump was reportedly pushing Iran to do?
The article really zeroes in on him directly telling Iran to sign the nuclear deal.
Yeah.
It sort of places this statement right in the middle of that heightened tension after the strike, adding, another layer to a pretty volatile mix.
And the article doesn't just say what he said, it gets into the tone, the reasoning behind it, as reported. How did the article describe his approach? Or his view on how things went before?
Yeah, the report mentions, or maybe paraphrases, President Trump sounding frustrated, like he felt he'd given them chance after chance to make a deal already. And the article notes some really strong language. It says he told them, in what it called the strongest words, to basically just do it. So the way the article frames it, it sounds like an ultimatum, like he'd run out of patience.
Hmm. And the article mentioned a specific point he made about figures involved previously. Who did he blame for deals not happening before, according to the source?
Right. The article highlights that in the statement, President Trump apparently blamed this Iranian hardliner for things falling through in the past. And then the article adds this detail from the statement itself that this person is apparently now dead, along with all of the top military personnel. And according to the article, the president sort of used this change in who's in charge as a reason for Iran's current leaders to maybe rethink things and sign the deal now, like to stop things getting worse.
That's a really interesting detail the article points out. It sounds like the president, as reported anyway, was maybe trying to frame this moment as a chance for a shift because of those internal changes in Iran. You touched on this, but maybe we can explore it a bit more based on how the article presents it. What's the bigger deal, according to the source, about a U.S. president making statements like this so direct, so public, so forceful about something as sensitive as a nuclear deal, especially right after military action?
Well, the significance the article seems to be getting at is kind of layered. First, it just signals how serious the situation is, right? A direct statement from the president, especially using that kind of language, puts it right at the top of the global agenda, instantly. Second, as the article sort of implies, these statements aren't just talk. Market people can read them as clues, signals about what might happen next, policy shifts maybe. The source basically presents this statement as the official context, the reason given by the administration for the potential consequences they then spell out. It's the setup the article uses to explain potential market reactions.
Okay, that makes sense. And the statement, as the article reported it went beyond just sign the deal. It had a pretty serious warning in it too, didn't it? Mentioning military capabilities. What did the article pull out about that?
Oh, yeah. The article quotes or paraphrases the president talking up U.S. military power, saying the U.S. has the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world by FAR. And then the statement, as reported, brings Israel into it, saying Israel has a lot of it, with much more to come, and then adds pretty pointedly that they know how to use it.
Yeah, that phrase, know how to use it, definitely sounds like it's meant to send a message about capability and willingness. And the warning didn't stop there, right? What did the article say about future attacks potentially being planned?
Exactly. The article says the president's warning, again, as reported, claimed that the next attacks planned would be more brutal. I mean, that's a really high-stakes thing to say publicly, clearly meant to signal a very severe outcome if things don't change direction.
And it all seemed to build towards a really specific ultimatum based on the article's account. What was that final demand? Or the final warning about what happens if they don't sign?
The article reports the ultimatum was basically, sign the deal before there's nothing left.
Huh.
And it was apparently framed as a chance for Iran to save what was once known as the Iranian Empire, kind of suggesting that not acting now would lead to, total destruction or losing their historical place. The article really emphasizes that dramatic language as part of the whole picture. It's painting the events, the statement, the market moves.
Okay, wow. So we've got the geopolitical event, the strike, then this very powerful, very explicit statement from a world leader talking about escalation and consequences. The article then shifts back to the markets, but this time focusing on digital assets. What did the source say happened immediately in the BTC market after all this?
Yeah, the article notes that after the strike reports and these comments came out, the BTC market, which it calls ever volatile, took a pretty significant and fast dive. It specifically said BTC experienced substantial volatility right after those strikes were reported.
And the article even gave a specific price number to show how sharp that reaction was.
Okay.
Where did BTC fall to, according to their report?
It highlighted that right in the immediate aftermath, BTC apparently dumped below $103,000 for the first time since last Friday. That specific number really drives home how fast and how big the move was, hitting a multi-day low really quickly after the news broke.
That seems like a very direct connection the article is making, right, between the geopolitical news and a specific measurable price drop in a digital asset. So maybe we can dig into why a market like BTC might react like that, so sharply, so fast, to global uncertainty, maybe even more than traditional assets sometimes, even if the direct economic link isn't super obvious. What does this article and the reaction it describes tell us about that?
Well, I think the specific case the article focuses on is a good example. Markets like BTC are often really sensitive to changes in how people feel about risk globally. When big geopolitical things blow up, especially involving major powers or, unstable regions, traders and investors tend to rethink risk everywhere. Assets seen as high risk, or maybe ones whose value isn't directly tied to old school economic stuff like GDP, they can see really quick sell-offs. The source points to this drop as basically risk-off behavior. And also, you have to remember, the digital asset market runs 24/7, right? It's super liquid, and news travels instantly. It's not like traditional markets that might close or have circuit breakers. News can get priced in literally the second it appears. So that reported drop below $103,000. It shows just how fast that price discovery can happen, which the article seems to be highlighting. Sentiment can just flip on a dime, and because everyone's so connected in that trading world, reactions can get magnified and happen incredibly fast.
Okay, so it's kind of a combination of the nature of the asset itself, how risky people perceive it to be, and also just the way the market works.
Yeah.
24/7, liquid, super fast information flow. That all contributes to this kind of immediate, sharp reaction that the article describes.
Exactly. The article presents this as a clear case where global tension just fed straight into market mechanics, risk calculations, fast trading leading to that quick price move.
But the article also pointed out it wasn't just a straight drop. It mentioned the market bounced back pretty quickly after that initial fall. Where did BTC get back to based on the prices in the source?
Yeah, the report does note that after hitting that low below $103,000, BTC regained some ground fairly fast. By the time the article was written, it said it was back close to $105,000. So that quick bounce is also part of the story the source tells.
So what might that quick recovery, as reported, tell us about how the market reacted, or maybe its resilience in this case?
Well, a fast recovery like the one the article describes could mean a few things. Maybe it shows some resilience in the asset itself. Like buyers stepped in pretty quickly, seeing the drop maybe as just a knee-jerk reaction to news, not something fundamentally changing. It also just really underlines the intense volatility in this market, doesn't it? Prices can fall fast on news, but they can also snap back just as quickly. The article seems to use that bounce to show volatility goes both ways. These markets can react to shocks really fast, down and up. So based on the prices cited, it wasn't like a sustained crash, but a sharp dip and then a quick stabilization or partial recovery.
Gotcha. And lastly, the article looked ahead a bit, didn't it? It included a warning about what might happen next with market moves if the tensions continue or get worse. What did the source warn investors about?
Yes, the source explicitly warns that more volatility is likely to follow if things between the U.S., Iran, and Israel further escalates. which really just reinforces the main point the article illustrates, right? How sensitive this market, and maybe others too, is to where these big global political and military situations are heading. The connection it highlights isn't just a one-off event, it's presented as an ongoing sensitivity.
Okay, so we've kind of walked through the whole chain as
Yeah.
the article laid it out. The geopolitical strike, the strong statement, the immediate oil reaction, then the sharp down and up reaction in BTC with specific prices, and a warning about more volatility if things escalate.
Right. Yeah, very clear line the source drew between these different areas.
So let's bring this back to you, the listener. Why does digging into this one specific example, this snapshot from the article, actually matter for you, whether you're deep in these markets or just trying to understand the world better?
Well, I think this example really hits home a fundamental shift. It shows how geopolitical events, even things focused on diplomacy or military moves, they're not just staying in their lane anymore. They have these direct, almost instant pipelines into all sorts of financial markets, maybe ones you're involved in or just watching. It kind of challenges that old idea that markets only move on traditional economics like GDP numbers or inflation, global politics, what leaders say, the risk of conflict. These are becoming really powerful, really immediate drivers of market swings. This specific case in the article just makes that abstract idea of interconnectedness really concrete.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think differently about news, doesn't it? When you hear about some major geopolitical thing, especially with big players or tense regions involved, it's not just a story anymore. It's potentially a market signal. And this article really highlights how fast that signal can turn into price changes, especially in markets like digital assets that trade nonstop and react so quickly to sentiment and news flow. It really underlines that need to be aware of more than just the traditional financial news if you're trying to navigate these spaces.
Exactly. It emphasizes that being truly informed today means understanding how all these different global forces bump into each other and influence things. What happens in a government building or on a border somewhere can ripple into your investments almost instantly.
So let's wrap up this deep dive. The key takeaway from looking at this specific article seems pretty clear. It showed a direct, vivid connection between one set of geopolitical tensions, Israel, Iran, a U.S. president's statement, and immediate significant volatility in the BTC market. It gave us specific price points for that reaction and warned that what happens next in the market is closely tied to whether things escalate further.
Right. And maybe here's a final thought to chew on as you go about your day. In a world where information and money move around the globe at, like, lightning speed, is any market really separate or safe from the tremors caused by global politics and military events? And if not, how does understanding that deep connection change how you look for information, how you think about risk, and maybe even how you read the day's headlines?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into that intersection of geopolitics and markets, seen through the lens of our source material. We hope it gave you some useful perspective.